Good afternoon. I'll call this meeting of the House Housing, Finance, and Policy Committee to order. And I will note a quorum is present. And first up, we have approval of the minutes. Vice Chair Agbaje, have you had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes, so moved.
Thank you. I will move, the minutes are before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We've approved the minutes. Members, we have 4 bills up today, and we also have, Snowmageddon coming. So we'll get through these bills and send people on their way home. And up first, we have a bill we have already heard with testimony, 1440. I will go present and turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Agbaje.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So House File 1440 is back in front of the committee, as the chair said. We just need to formally amend it and then send it out of this committee. But before we do that, we have 2 amendments to the A5 Authors Amendment, which was discussed last Thursday. So of the 2 amendments, the first one we'll move is I will move the A6 to amend the A5 amendment. Representative Howard, please explain the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Chair Agbaje. Members, again, this is the bill we discussed last week, providing $100 million in emergency rental assistance through the FHPAP program. And as you might remember from the discussion, we wanted to make a set aside of these dollars available for existing FHPAP grantees so that we can get more resources into the hands of Minnesotans who are struggling as soon as we can. This amendment proposes to make $50 million of the $100 million available to existing FHPAP grantees, and that is the substance of this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The amendment is adopted. We have a second amendment. I believe, Representative Johnson, you have an amendment that's coded A7. Would you like to explain your amendment?
Chair Agbaje, members, this amendment requires that this committee gets the information of where this grant dollars are going to, and making sure that the goals and objectives are met. It gives us an idea that the funds that we're spending are doing what it's supposed to do. This committee does have oversight on the dollars, and this requires reports to the chairs and ranking members of both the House and Senate, so we can actually have some oversight in making sure that the dollars are being spent correctly.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Chair Howard, any comments?
Chair Agbaje, I would encourage members to support the amendment and thanks Representative Johnson for bringing it forward. This report's already being generated. I think it does make sense for our legislature to see the report, and I would encourage a yes vote.
Any further member discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the A7 amendment, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? The amendment, the motion, the vote carries and the amendment is adopted. So I will now motion that House File 1440 as amended be re-referred to the House Ways and Means Committee. Chair Howard, comments from?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we have to move the amendment now, since as amended, onto the bill, and then there's maybe some questions after that.
Yes.
Because I think you just approved the amendment to the amendment.
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you, Representative Petersburg. Sorry, I'll go back one more. Now that we have the A5 as amended, we will now I now move that the A5 as amended be amended to House File 1440. And any discussion?
Can I?
Yes, go ahead, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just quick question for the Chair. Where was when they get submitted onto the bill, where will the bill go, and will it be coming back with the dollar amount listed?
Representative Howard.
Chair Agbaje, Representative Petersburg, this amendment does fill in that amount. So the full bill would make 50 million available to go to existing FHPAP providers. And the full amount of the bill, $100 million. So basically, half of that $100 million would be available on an earlier timeline for the FHPAP providers, the existing FHPAP providers.
Representative Petersburg?
Thank you. I was just trying to get to line 1.6. I thought, oh, there it is. I see it. Okay, never mind. It was there. And so the only other question is, where will this be going from here?
Representative Howard?
Chair Badje, Representative Petersburg, this will be going to the Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Petersburg. All right, I'll call for the vote one more time. House File 1440 as amended by the A5 amendment that we updated with 2 amendments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries, and the House File 1440 as amended is referred to the House Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Howard.
Up next, we have House File 1635, Representative Norris. As folks are getting settled, I will move that House File 1635 be re-referred to the House Taxes Committee. And first, Representative Norris, I understand that you have an amendment that you'd like to move, the A1. Could you explain the A1?
Yes, Chair Howard, thank you, and members of the committee. The idea for this bill first surfaced in recent years when we were seeing significant jumps in the revenue collected through the mortgage registry tax and the deed tax. As originally drafted, the bill took the increase in revenue collected from those taxes compared to the previous fiscal year and directed them toward developing workforce housing. However, now we're projecting year-to-year decreases in those specific taxes. And since the development of workforce housing is still an urgent priority, this amendment ensures that at least $15 million is directed to this fund, regardless of whether the mortgage registry tax and deed tax come in higher or lower than the previous year.
Any discussion to the A1? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The A1 is adopted. Representative Norris, please present your bill.
All right. Thank you, Chair Howard. So we've heard a lot in this committee about the importance of increasing the inventory of housing in the state of Minnesota, and this bill is one answer to that question. The Workforce Home Ownership Development Fund was created in 2016 as a separate and complementary fund within Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to increase the production of entry-level single-family homes. It complements Minnesota Housing's existing program that helps lower the cost of owner-occupied homes developed in communities throughout the state, known as the Challenge Fund. The dollars in this particular fund must be balanced 50-50 between Greater Minnesota and the metro area. The fund received a one-time appropriation of $750,000 in 2016 and now receives a similar amount annually to support affordable home ownership statewide. But we know that the need for workforce housing is so much greater than that. So this bill aims to boost funding for the program and also allow for issuing loans in addition to grants to give Minnesota Housing some more flexibility in how these funds are used. It's important to have as many tools in our toolbox as possible to address affordable housing challenges in Minnesota, and this bill will create continuity and funding predictability for programs and projects moving forward. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of testifiers.
Thank you. Our first testifier, Jeff Washburn, City of Lakes Community Land Trust. Mr. Washburn, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Howard. Committee members, my name is Jeff Washburn. I'm the Executive Director with the City of Lakes Community Land Trust, the community land trust that serves the City of Minneapolis. Our organization, along with habitats across the state, other community land trusts, CAP agencies, manufactured housing organizations, a number of community developers, and the home ownership, home buyer education, and post-purchase counseling entities are all part of a coalition called Home or Homeownership Minnesota. Pretty much any organization out there that's providing affordable home ownership in the state is part of our coalition. And we've come together to look at ways to build up the amount of dollars that we can put and invest into affordable home ownership across the state. Our members pretty much touch all of the state and areas in creation of affordable home ownership, and are also serving households of color at a rate of 2 to 6 times that of the local geographies. I won't go into too much detail on the need. I know this committee has heard quite often about the need across the state, but over the past 50 years, we've not done any better than the 5th worst state as it relates to the disparities in racial home ownership gap that exists. We have approximately 27,000 units that are affordable to households that could go out and buy an affordable home in the state, and it really comes down to the production that Representative Norris had mentioned. And over the last 5 years, on average, only about 100 new affordable home ownership opportunities have been created through the current state funding. And getting back to the current appropriation for the workforce home ownership program, just I think for context sake, my organization alone typically applies for $3 to $4 million a year from the state of Minnesota. We're fortunate in that we do receive somewhere between $1 and $2 million a year, but relative to this fund, which we have not received dollars from, you can see kind of the level of need that's out there, and that's just the city of Minneapolis for my specific organization. This bill, thanks again to Representative Norris for bringing this forward, is a way for us to complement the dollars that are needed to create more affordable home ownership here in the state. These dollars will complement and also provide a longer term continuity and expectation of funds that we can apply for on an annual basis. I think one of the challenges for all of our organizations is to continue to work in the space of unpredictable dollars. We can go out and compete, I think, a lot better against investors, bringing housing stock and or developing homes in our community if we know that there's a kind of a pot of dollars that we can apply for that will make those homes affordable. The nexus is there. This is a bill that we've been working on for the last 7 or 8 years, trying to bring that forward. But I think in our belief that these dollars that could be made available through this fund are a direct correlation, I think, to the challenges that are put on the housing market. And we're hopeful that this committee will support these efforts. At this point, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Kristen Incity, who's the director for Habitat Minnesota.
Thank you. Ms. Incity, welcome to the community, or welcome to the committee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Howard and Representative Norris and members of the committee for having me here again. For the record, my name is Kristen Incity. I'm the CEO of Habitat Minnesota, which is a state support organization for the 25 Habitat for Humanity affiliates that serve the state, and also the co-chair of Homeownership Minnesota with Jeff Washburn. And I just wanted to first say thank you for advancing House File 1635. As Jeff shared, Homeownership Minnesota supports this file, and we hope that the committee continues to advance this bill. I just wanted to share with the committee an example of the projects the Workforce and Affordable Homeownership Development Program can fund. Lakes Area Habitat for Humanity is based in Brainerd, Minnesota, and they serve Crow Wing, Wadena, Cass, and Hubbard counties. In April 2022, Lakes Area Habitat requested $250,000 in American Rescue Plan Act resources from Cass County to fund 4 to 5 homes per year over the next 2 years in Cass Lake. That fund will add affordable workforce homeownership opportunities to the community. The Cass County Board approved this request, and in addition to these federal funds, Lakes Area Habitat is seeking philanthropic support, and the Workforce and Affordable Homeownership Program is providing development gap resources of up to $55,000. These units will be built in partnership with the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa, meeting a local need that is not currently being met through other programs. The Leech Lake Band has an immediate need for nearly 500 housing units and longer term for over 2,000 units. Lakes Area Habitat had over 60 families attend their application meetings and have more than 10 completed applications to review for the first 4 homes that they're starting later this year. This is an example of the vast need in our communities, along with the resources the state can provide through homeownership investments like that are being proposed in this bill. These resources, matched with philanthropic dollars, target local housing needs and work to address some of our state's racial inequities in homeownership. Funding the Workforce and Affordable Homeownership Program at the levels noted in House File 1635 would support the creation of a pipeline of projects around the state, increasing workforce and affordable homeownership opportunities for low and moderate income households and households of color. This is just one example of the impact that could be had through this program, and with an increase in funding of this scope, it increases the odds that all 10 of those families who apply to Habitat's program in Cass Lake could be selected to purchase their first home, not to mention all the other families and households in other communities. Our state needs an investment of this magnitude in affordable homeownership programs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to testify? If not, questions? Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, Representative Norris, I was, couple things. One, I was surprised by the number. Could you repeat the number that this fund is getting right now yearly by the state from the 2016 law?
Representative Norris.
Chair Howard, Representative Johnson, my understanding is that the current appropriation is $750,000 per year.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, Representative Norris, thanks you for that information. With this bill, it's a 2,000% increase in the funding. I'm just wondering if you can tell me how that's going to actually reduce the cost of housing instead of just shifting the cost. What we need to really be doing is figuring out ways to reduce cost so we can actually get affordable housing for those who need it. And just instead of just shifting the cost to somewhere else. I'm just wondering if you can explain how this bill is going to actually reduce the cost.
Representative Norris.
Thank you, Chair Howard and Representative Johnson. I might lean on some of our testifiers who have more expertise in this area, but at a high level, this is about increasing inventory. We've talked about how one of the challenges we have that's driving up costs is the lack of supply. This would direct money toward increasing supply, which then naturally through economic laws of supply and demand will hopefully ease those upward price pressures. But I'd be happy to have some of my testifiers elaborate more on that as well.
Ms. City.
Thank you, Chair Howard, and for the question. I think what we would, and Jeff could definitely hop into, one thing to consider about this is that this would create a reliable source of funds for developers, which means that we would know the resources were available and could project our project plans going forward into the future, which would then help us save costs and plan better and get projects completed in a more rapid timeline.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, members, in other words, this really isn't going to do anything to reduce the cost, just keep shifting the cost. Right now it's getting better, but we have a supply chain issue. Most of our lumber comes from Canada, which basically shut down their entire logging industry for almost 2 years. The supply is down, demand is up a little bit, and when those things happen, costs go up. We also have issues where there's regulations in place that drive up the cost of housing. So we got to figure out a way to do reduction in the cost. There's some cities around, and I went on the internet and looked, and to build a $200,000 home, it's up to and even higher than $15,000 just in the permitting process. We got to find a way to get that down, because to me that's out of sight. When you start adding $15,000 just for permits, it's knocking a lot of people out of being able to buy a home. Some of these people that are looking at buying these $15,000 is close to 50% or more of their yearly income. So we do need to find a way to do that, and I think this committee needs to start looking at some of those other ways to actually reduce the cost of housing.
Any other questions, or Representative Norris, do you have a comment there?
Yeah, Chair Howard, I just wanted to add, we've talked about putting lots of different tools in our toolbox. This is one of them. As a preview of coming attractions, I've also got the Comprehensive Housing Spectrum Act that's going to be coming before the committee that gets at a lot of the issues that Representative Johnson just raised, and always looking for co-authors on that bill as well.
Any other questions? If not, I will renew the motion. Or any other just closing comments on the bill, Representative Norris?
Thanks, Chair Howard. Like I said, this is about putting different tools in our toolbox. I think this is an important one, and also looking at different income levels for housing. We've talked about deeply affordable. We've talked about rental. Workforce housing is another critical component that we have to look at, and I think this bill helps to address that particular piece of our puzzle.
Thank you, Representative Norris. I'll renew the motion that House File 1635 as amended be re-referred to the House Taxes Committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. And you're on to taxes, but you're still up there for the next bill, Representative Norris, which is 1696.
Yes. Thank you again, Chair Howard. We know that housing matters, and having stable housing allows people with mental illnesses to focus on their recovery and even turn their attention to other goals like employment and education. Unfortunately, people living with mental illnesses are much more likely to experience housing instability or even homelessness. Before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the most recent Wilder homeless count found that 64% of respondents have a serious mental illness, and 24% were living with a substance abuse disorder. For those with a history of incarceration or treatment in a state-operated facility, access to permanent supportive housing significantly reduces their time in these systems. In fact, one study found that 95% of the costs of supportive housing were offset by lower treatment costs. Luckily, we've got the Bridges Rental Assistance Program. This program provides housing subsidies to people living with serious mental illnesses while they are on the waiting list for federal Section 8 housing assistance. As with Section 8, people on Bridges rent an apartment at the regular market rate and pay 30% of their income for rent. The program provides a voucher that covers the balance. Bridges is administered by local housing authorities or other entities who manage Section 8 programs. But with tight rental markets, it can be very challenging for people with housing vouchers and other housing supports to find a landlord that is willing to rent to them. These challenges can be even greater for people with mental illnesses or who have experience with the criminal justice system. That's why this bill also includes a landlord risk mitigation fund that responds to this problem by providing insurance for the landlord. If a tenant on a public housing voucher damages the property or fails to pay rent, the risk mitigation fund can offset some of those costs. Overall, the goal of this bill is simple: to help house some of our fellow Minnesotans who face the most significant barriers to being housed. Thank you, Chair Howard.
Thank you, Representative Norris. Up first, we have Elliot Boutte with NAMI. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Howard, members. My name's Elliot Boutai. I'm the Senior Policy Coordinator at NAMI, Minnesota. I'm also speaking today on behalf of the Mental Health Legislative Network. The network's a coalition of over 40 mental health organizations, including providers, professionals, and advocates like NAMI. We work together on a number of bills this session, and this is our housing proposal. It's short and sweet, but we think it'll have a big impact. As Representative Norris said, people with mental illnesses encounter specific barriers to obtaining stable housing, and the funding in this bill will provide essential ongoing support for people with mental illnesses. The Bridges Rental Assistance Program is very successful, and it helps people secure permanent supportive housing. Providers work to make sure a person with a mental illness has both housing and the services they need to be successful. The funding is important because we do have a number of areas in the state with waiting lists for the Bridges program. We reached out to some providers in the fall and heard of, we have 22 people on a waiting list in Douglas County, 7 in northwestern Minnesota, 42 in the St. Cloud area and surrounding counties. We've heard of lists that have been as high as 400 people on a waiting list, and often we also hear that the number doesn't reflect the actual need because providers have narrowed the criteria so they can actually be more realistic for people. So providers need more funding to serve more people. The second section of the bill expands on the landlord risk mitigation funds. These funds go to nonprofits or supportive housing providers, which help people, and they're targeted to people with mental illnesses and families in this bill. And not only does this help people with mental illnesses access housing, but it also provides, when providers work with landlords, it provides a point person so they can actually address concerns, before something happens. And the funds can be used, like Representative Norris said, for unpaid rent or any repairs that might go on beyond what a security deposit covers. So thank you for hearing this bill, and we urge your support.
Thank you. Next, we have Nicholas Rasmussen. Mr. Rasmussen, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Rasmussen, and I reside at 6953 West 140th Street.
Sorry, Mr. Rasmussen, could you speak a little closer to the microphone? They're kind of soft mics. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Rasmussen, and I reside at 6953 West 140th Street in Savage, Minnesota. I was a software engineer and entrepreneur. It meant I worked often and slept little. In 2013, I experienced a psychotic break, and it was 36 months from the onset of symptoms before I received the treatment I needed. During the interim, I had repeated contact with law enforcement, the judiciary, community members, and healthcare workers. Prior to getting the help I needed, I consumed massive amounts of resources for no real benefit to anyone. When my illness was finally identified and I received the hospitalization I needed, my illness had progressed to the point where I spent 2 months in a psychiatric unit at Abbott Northwestern Hospital, accruing total charges of $176,525.40. I then spent approximately 2 months in an IRT center. That stay was estimated to cost $31,720 by the provider. While in the hospital, my home was foreclosed on. I was very fortunate that I was able to convince family members to move some of my things out of my house before the bank took it back, or I would no longer have any possessions. On discharge from the hospital, I was homeless. I'm very fortunate that I had an adult mental health caseworker assigned to me, as he was able to make arrangements for me to reside in Scott County's transitional housing, which in this case was a duplex owned by the county. My relationship with my family had deteriorated to such an extent that they were no longer willing to offer me a place to stay. Again, I was very fortunate that my case manager was able to get me a Bridges voucher, which gave me 60 days to find housing and would subsidize my rent. After much difficulty, we found a landlord who would work with the voucher and my now bad credit and criminal history. Without the Bridges voucher, I believe I would have ended up in a homeless shelter. Unfortunately, Section 8 is not a readily available source of housing support. In Scott County, the waiting list, which opened up for about a week a few years ago, had been closed for 14 years. The Bridges voucher provided me with housing so I could continue my recovery. From my perspective, providing housing to those recovering from a mental illness is the right thing to do. Awarding me with a Bridges voucher protected the investment that had been made in me by Medicaid, which, as I understand it, paid for my hospitalization and IRT stay and contributed to giving me the best chance at preventing a relapse and another costly hospitalization. Please support HF 1696. I believe this is an investment that makes sense for Minnesota.
Mr. Rasmussen, thank you for your testimony. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nancy Miller. Is Ms. Miller here? If not, I will go to question. Well, is there anybody else in attendance who would like to testify? If not, we'll go to member questions. And actually, I know there is an amendment. Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, Representative Norris, I have an amendment dealing with reports again. And I do believe the more information this committee has, the better we can serve the citizens of Minnesota. and to make sure that the funds are being spent properly. Right now, reports go to, I've noticed, looking through the statutes, the reports can go to 2 different organizations or areas before they actually go to Minnesota Housing Finance, who compiles everything, and we just get a $100,000 overview of where the funds are going. But I think it's better that we have a more write down where the funds are going to and making sure everything is being done properly, that the way this committee has decided to have those funds used. So I hope you would take this amendment.
Representative Norris to the A1 amendment.
Chair Howard, Representative Johnson, thanks for bringing forward the amendment. I accept it as a friendly amendment and would urge a yes vote on it.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the A1, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The A1 is adopted. Now to discussion to the bill, to the bill as amended. Representative Shaw.
Just want to make a comment to testifier. Thank you for coming down here and sharing your story, and good luck to your recovery. Thank you.
Representative Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Rep. Norris, for this bill. As someone who has worked in the mental health field, someone who's experiencing, mental health, battling with mental health illness, housing instability is just an added stress. So I'm thankful that programs like this exist and they're helpful. And thank you to the testifier for coming down here and sharing your story. I know this is not the easiest building to access, and it's not super friendly to the public, but we love to hear from people who are impacted by the work that we're doing. So thank you.
Any other questions or members? I'll just add my 2 cents, and thanks, Representative Norris and Mr. Rasmussen for being here today. It really does. This program is one that, as the testimony indicates, in the absence of programs like this and supports like this, not only does our community members suffer, but the safety net, as it will, incurs greater costs as well. And so, where we can help folks find that level of housing stability, the ripple benefits are many. And so, I'll go to Representative Norris for any final comments on the bill.
Thank you, Chair Howard, and I'll just express my appreciation to Mr. Rasmussen for sharing his story and coming to join us today. We've seen what an impact this can make for Mr. Rasmussen, and I hope this bill allows for similar stories like his in the future.
With that, I will renew, let's see here, excuse this one. I'll renew my motion that House File 1696 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in an omnibus bill. And with that, the bill is laid over. Our last bill that we'll hear today is House File 1507, Representative Fischer's bill. And he came in right on cue. You've had a day of that, Representative Fischer. And taxes, you got a rousing applause. And so, sorry we didn't greet you with raucous applause there, but welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Howard and committee. I appreciate being able to get here. I don't need applause. It was kind of weird. But I appreciate being here today for House File 1507. I do have an amendment, the A1 amendment I'd like
Yes, I will move that 1507 be laid over for possible inclusion in an omnibus bill, and I will move the A1 amendment. And to you, Representative Fischer, to explain the amendment.
Thank you very much. The amendment is to change the 1 million to 10 million each year. When I was having things go through, I missed a 0 in there. So it was originally supposed to have been 10 million for each fiscal year.
Any question to the A1? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The A1 is adopted. I know there's an amendment we'll get to later, but I will go to you, Representative Fischer, to present your bill.
Thank you so much, Chair Howard and committee. Appreciate being here to present House File 1507. This is a bill to provide grants to help make homes safe, rental properties safe from lead. We know that lead causes huge problems for our youth. Any kids, any kind of lead can cause defects down the road and cause serious health problems. So there is no safe level of lead. The problem is we've had many homes that were built in an era when lead paint was very common. And so what this bill does is it puts dollars out there to help identify these homes, do assessments to see, are they being tested? Are they testing positive for lead? If so, then providing grants to help make sure that we can make sure that the lead is encapsulated or treated in the right way or removed so that these places will be safe for folks in the future. And that's, in short, what it does. It also identifies how much should be used in each different areas. It's identifying different size units that things should be looked at, looking at people's housing income, et cetera, to make sure that we're able to get this money to go as far as possible and address the populations that are most vulnerable, because typically the older units are units that were built before 1978, and these are typically units that are going to be housing people that are lower income at much more risk than the typical population. So I'll pause there. I've got some great testifiers here with me today who are going to be able to do a much better job of explaining what happens when people are exposed to lead. So with that, I'll turn it over to our testifiers.
Thank you, Representative Fischer. Welcome to the committee. Please say your name for the committee and welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee meetings. My name is Tycia Fletcher. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support
I'm sorry, Ms. Fletcher, can you move the microphone a little closer? Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to support House File 1507. Both of my kids, Logan and Dustin Shields, has been poisoned by lead. They're back here, right up there. Raise your hands. They're 15 and 16 years old. Dustin is 15. Logan is 16. Dustin was poisoned back when he was 10 months old. He wasn't able to talk. He had meltdowns, read or write or anything like that. Now he's diagnosed with autism. He's been on the spectrum. Well, he was diagnosed for about 7 years. They diagnosed him with autism. He goes to Lionsgate Academy. Both kids have been diagnosed with a special need, a disability. Logan is ADHD. The problems that we have had with them is just something that you don't want a child to ever deal with. I had both my kids, they were normal. No drugs or alcohol were in their systems at all. And to deal with my son not being able to tell me what he wants by yelling and screaming in public and falling out and doing all kind of things like that, because he couldn't, what was up here and what he saw, he couldn't bring out of his mouth. So that was an embarrassment for me as a mom when I'm in public. So that was one of my major concerns, that he couldn't communicate what he wanted. And he was severely bow-legged. Thank God that he grew taller, that his legs straightened out. There's a lot of physical and mental things that can happen to a child that is poisoned with lead. They have learning disabilities. It's harder for them to do things like a normal child. Dustin went through 5 different schools. Thank God he's in a proper school now. He's a freshman. He's a freshman. They growing up so fast I can't even think now. But he is a freshman, and it's been a long time coming. Both kids are now on the honor roll at Lionsgate Academy. It took a lot. It takes a lot for a mom to deal with 2 kids that has been poisoned with 2 disabilities. You know, we just almost had a little meltdown in the hallway just 5 minutes before we walked in here about headphones. Simple things, you know. I mean, it could be anything with him. And it's stressful for me. I've lost over 100 pounds dealing with, you know, the fact that my kids have these different, you know, issues, and I have to constantly learn and take classes to figure out how to deal with 2 kids with disabilities. And the spectrum is wide, so, you know, I always kind of stay on top of things. I always have to stay on top of his education, both kids for the most part. But yes, there's a lot of things that can happen with lead poisoning. It's just something, like I said, I wouldn't wish on anybody's kids. And I think that it has been a long time. We've been working on this for over 10 years. And there's no excuse for landlords not to know that this poison is in their homes. And low-income families, mainly black families, move into these homes and they get lied to about, oh, no, we don't know. Well, how come you don't know when you've owned this property for over, 2 or 3 years? You should know. And that goes, it does, and the thing about lead poisoning, it doesn't have a color. It can affect anybody in this room who has kids under the age of 6, newborn, pregnant moms. So don't think that this is just a black thing or African American thing. This is a people thing. This is for Somalians, Hmong. We've tested all these people. We've tested all these kids, all these nationalities, and they all have been positive. Especially in North Minneapolis, they have the highest rate of lead poisoning. I think before the pandemic, it was we did I think 50 homes. Half of those homes and half of those kids were poisoned with high levels of lead. So that means that the state, you guys are going to pay for it because they're going to end up applying for disability. They, not to say what a round amount, but it's over $100,000 a year to take care of one child. That's $200,000 because I have 2 kids. That's money that's coming out of taxpayers' pocket. We can go somewhere else if we get these homes, fixed. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be this for the most part. And kids, these kids that we're talking about, these are our doctors, our lawyers. These are our future. This is just not any child. These are kids that's growing up. My son is an artist. My daughter is a cook. But they have, both of these kids are going to be considered vulnerable adults. Why do we need so many vulnerable adults? How come they have to be vulnerable when we can stop it right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher, and thank you for your continued advocacy. And thanks to Logan and Dustin for coming with your mom today. And I hope you enjoy I think you might we might all get a snow day, but hopefully you can enjoy a few days off from school too. Up next, we have Rochelle Menentoa-Pulaski. Thank you.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Chair Howard and committee members, my name is Rochelle Menentoa-Pulaski, and I'm the Director of Education and Outreach Program for a nonprofit organization called Sustainable Resources Center in Minneapolis. Our mission is to create healthy, efficient homes and safe for families. Our cause is healthy housing. I'm happy to be here to testify again in support of House File 1507, Lead Safe Homes Bill, because it will help to prevent our children from being lead poisoned and their brains damaged from lead-based paint. And this bill will help keep families and communities healthy and safe. I first met Tycia and her children many years ago when she first came to SRC for help. They were living in an apartment complex. What we do through our lead education outreach program is that we offer free in-home visits. Anyone qualifying can call us. We offer free in-home visits. We do dust wipe samples. We take lots of pictures. We collaborate with other communities to do healthy homes as well, so that the money spreads out, not just lead, but healthy homes in general. So we get them enrolled into a lot of different programs and resources with that first touch, okay? So there are grants available, and we were able to enroll Tycia and her family into one of these grants through Hennepin County. They're lead hazard reduction grants. And so they're primarily federal resources that are available for low-income families and to replace the windows. We stabilize paint, surfaces, the walls, door trims, exterior components as well. And it is free for qualifying homeowners and tenants. And this is huge. The huge incentive for property owners is that the grant covers 90%. They only have to pay 10%, and it's their main responsibility, right? They should be providing safe home environments for their families. But that's huge. It's a huge incentive. It used to be 50-50. The grant covers 50%, and the homeowner, the landlords cover 50%. Now it's 90%. It's a win-win. As you mentioned, lead is a neurotoxin and has many permanent and harmful effects on children's intelligence, behavior, and growth. Anyone living in a pre-1978 home is at risk. However, children before age 6, they're the most vulnerable. The biggest problem that we see here is that families are not aware of the lead issue. They don't know what the sources are, and that they have lifelong harmful consequences of lead poisoning. So in Tycia's case, she went from one apartment complex, got poisoned, the children got poisoned there. They went to another apartment complex where the landlord had lead-based paint there and got re-poisoned. This is a common problem, and it has ripple effects. There are social and economic consequences that impact a child's future. The estimated cost associated with lead-poisoned child is $100,000 a year, versus spending approximately $2,500 per apartment unit on lead remediation, simple paint stabilization, cleaning up with specialized HEPA vacuums. We need to really shift our priorities now towards preventing children from being exposed to lead hazards in the first place. Prevention is absolutely the best policy for protecting our children from toxic effects of lead. So it makes sense to use our money in this preventative measures, save lives, save money, and protect children's future. I've been at Sustainable Resources Center for 15 years now. I can't believe it. We were just talking about how long it's been. And I've seen the devastating effects of lead poisoning on families. Another huge problem that we see, and I mentioned a little bit, is that there's this high rates of turnover in low-income families, low-income neighborhoods, and the incoming families are facing the same lead threats as those who are moving out, right? The last to leave. So simple thing, I found it, I left it in my bag there, but it's a simple lead check swab, and you can see them, you can buy them at Menards, Home Depot. It's lead check swabs. It's in my purse. You're welcome to get it, Sue. But it's like a little swab, and you break it, and you test any surface, wood, painted surfaces. Some of you are nodding. Yes, you know what it is. And simple, in 30 seconds, if the tip turns red, then that means that there is lead present, okay? And so this is something that people can call, residents, landlords, they can just call us, and we would offer a free in-home visit, okay? And it doesn't replace the intended inspector, a licensed lead inspector, but this is something that in the meantime we can at least address some of the issues and then work with landlords and property owners so that we can offer the free in-home visits and assist the families in getting in these already standing grant programs that exist. So I really encourage you. I mean, we've been advocating this bill for years, and the time is now. I really urge you to support Lead Safe Homes Bill 1507.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sue Watla Phillips with Micah. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Sue Watlow Phillips. I'm Executive Director of MICA, the Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing, and past president of the National Coalition for the Homeless. And it's my honor to be here, an opportunity to testify in support of House File 1507, Lead Safe Home Bill. And thank you, Representative Fischer and Chair Howard for also co-authoring this bill. Greatly appreciate that. As I talked with you about over a month ago about the importance that MICA sees of having people that have experienced homelessness at every decision-making table, Tycia has been at this table in writing this piece of legislation. It's named after Dustin Luke Shields' bill, and this is about protecting other folks within our community because they know what it's like to live through having both children poisoned with lead paint. MICA and Homes for All strongly support this bill, and we've worked on it with Tycia for many, many years, and Tyrone and Dustin and Logan. And a similar bill has been in the conference committee for the last few years. 1 in every 3 homes in Minnesota has lead paint in it, according to the Department of Health. Homes built before 1980 are across the state. So one of the handouts that you have provides a lot of details in regards to information on what I'm going to be talking about, so I encourage you to take a look at this. Minnesota Department of Health reports that 84% of the children with high blood level had hazardous lead paint in their home. And according to Freddie Mac, 75% of the housing stock in low-income minority communities and were basically built before 1980. So we can see that this is really impacting our diverse communities and our folks with very limited incomes. Lead testing is not universal. A lot of people think it is. And in fact, during the pandemic, we had very low amount of lead testing that was being done. Lead poisoning disproportionately impacts our low-income and diverse communities. We have an average of 500 to 700 children that are poisoned every year in Minnesota. The lead exposure has been already talked about, is very dangerous to children. It causes permanent brain damage, impacts child's ability to learn and function, disrupts the family life, and as a society, we lose the opportunity to know these wonderful creations of God, these wonderful children, and all that they could have been because their brain was damaged and destroyed in some cases by lead paint. As has been mentioned, if a child becomes disabled because of lead paint, we will spend about $100,000 per year per child for the rest of their life as they are accessing special ed, disability service, Medicaid, and other services. So it costs us about $2,500 to test a unit and to repaint it. Makes it safe then for 5 years. It's not the perfect solution, but it is a solution for a period of time as we continue to work to make sure that we have all lead-safe homes. In other words, if we can stop 2 or 3 children from becoming disabled, we pay for this bill during their lifetime. Lead poisoning is irreversible. You can't change it, and it's totally preventable. Please support the Lead Safe Home Bill 1507 and help us keep our children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, great nieces and nephews, friends and neighbors safe so that they can grow up and have a good, healthy life. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify to this bill? If not, I know there is an amendment. Representative Johnson, to your amendment.
Chair Howard, Representative Fischer, this amendment is not against you or your bill. It's something that we do need to talk about, though. It's dealing with the term landlord. I actually dug into the history of the term, and it started, from what I can tell, back in the medieval times. The concept of landlord was tracked back into the feudal system or the manorialism, where the landed estate is owned by a lord of the manor, and usually a member of lower nobility from the rank of knights in the high medieval period. Now, manorialism, also called the manorial system, was a political, economic, and social system which the peasants of the medieval Europe were rendered dependent on the land and on their lord. I think it's time we get rid of the term landlord and get back to what these individuals, the property owners, are. They are housing providers. They're providing housing for individuals and families, and they overall do a very good job. Do we have some that are called slumlords? Absolutely. We need to work on them. But the vast majority are good people wanting to do the best they can for those that are utilizing the housing that they're renting out to these individuals and families. So I think it's something we need to look at. We've had other areas where we've updated statutes and terms, and I think it's time we look at updating the term landlord and getting it back to what it is a housing provider, and working with the housing providers to get more availability for those that need short-term or long-term housing in the long run. And with that, I'll withdraw the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Representative Johnson withdraws the amendment. And so now we are on to the discussion to the bill. Are there questions? Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to represent. I have a quick question, just clarifying question on first page, line 1.20 and 1.21 versus the next page. It appears, if I'm reading this right, it seems that the language says that if you have even one tenant, if you have 11 units or less, you have even one tenant that's at 61% or higher of the median income, you do not qualify for the program, versus on 2.1 and 2.2, where you only need 50% of the tenants to be below that 60%. Is that your intention? I just want to make sure we're clear on the intent.
Representative Fischer.
As I'm taking a look at, thank you, Chair Howard and Representative Petersburg. As I'm taking a look at it, what I'm understanding here is that if you're a landlord with 11 units or less, the tenant's income should not exceed 60% of the median income. On the other one, it's where if you're 12 units or more, it must be where at least 50% of the residents are below the 60% threshold. And so that's what I'm seeing through here. I don't see it necessarily saying it's just one person, if I was understanding your question right.
Representative Petersburg.
Yeah, no, I think maybe I'm misunderstanding. It says units or less where the tenant's income does not exceed 60%, which means, in my opinion, it seems like every tenant has to be 60% or less, meaning all 11 units have to be 60% or less. The next page, it says 50%. So if you have 12 units, only 6 of those units would have to be 50% or less in order to qualify for this program. It seems like a pretty high threshold for the 11 units. Now, if you said the tenant's average income has to be 60% or less, that maybe is what's intended. I just don't know what your thought was, but it seems like the language written said that all 11 units have to have tenants with income of less than 60% in order to qualify for this. And I don't know if that's your intent. I'm just saying it's unclear.
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing up, and with it being unclear, we're willing to work on that because the last thing we want to do is have it where, all 11 units would have to be at that level. I think that's one of the things that we can take a look at addressing here with an amendment, with going forward. As from what I recall, this is going to be laid over, and so we can get some language to address that.
Other questions? Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, Representative Fischer. I'm glad you gave the explanation why there was a 2,000 increase in the amount on your bill because the zero is left off. So I was really wondering why it was went from 1 million to 10 million, and that did explain it. The other question I have is we currently have both federal and state very established and significant plan for mapping, testing, and replacement for lead issues across the state. I'm just wondering why we're starting a new pilot program.
Representative Fischer.
Thank you, Chair Howard, Representative Johnson. The reason that we're doing this is because what we're expecting is that the landlords would first tap the funds that are available out there, realizing that may not always address the need that is there. We have many, many units out there, as we've been hearing through our testimony, that are not covered right now. And the federal dollars coming through are not enough. Matter of fact, the amount of money we have here is not enough to address the entire problem out here. What we're trying to do is get more money into the system because, as we heard through testimony, all it takes is for us to prevent lead poisoning of a couple of kids, and this pays for itself. And I can tell you with the number of people that get exposed, and a lot of times that, you don't find out in the kids until they're a couple of years old when they go in for, I believe it's their 2-year testing where they get their blood work tested. And there's some populations where they aren't always very expeditious about having their kids get in on time to be tested. And so by the time they actually get in, the damage is already done. It's too late to reverse it. And so that's why it's important for us to get out there to make the dollars available to get into all these units. Because right now, a unit might be okay, that doesn't have kids in today, may have kids in tomorrow. And so it's over time, we have to get to all these units to get them corrected.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Howard, Representative Fischer, I'm just wondering if you're aware that there's another bill that is going through the system right now, which is appropriating $800 million for a program like this and matches some federal dollars as well. Does the bill that, this bill that you're bringing forward, is that enough to actually tap into the federal dollars so we can use the federal dollars for this program as well? Or does this not even come close to meeting those requirements?
Representative Fischer or Ms.
Chair
Watley-Phillips?
Howard, I'm familiar with this being in the environment world where we had, the bill you're referring to is the lead service pipe bill, and that's confined specifically to lead service pipes that are in the ground. These would not qualify for those dollars at all, and that's part of the federal government infrastructure program to make sure that we get all lead pipelines out of the water systems.
Representative Johnson.
Hi, Representative Howard, or Chair Howard, Representative Fischer, thank you for that information. I'm also wondering, trying to figure out, that most of these homes that have the lead paint issue, and I understand the lead paint issue is my wife's family's been in painting going way back into the 1800s. And I actually have a copy of the ad where it says, we have lead to help the paint hold better back in the 1918s. So I'm well aware of the lead issue. But I'm just wondering how remediation of the lead's going to work when, in fact, I had a nonprofit dealing with it in my district, or my new district now, where it is expensive for lead removal, but a lot of these homes are on that, some of them might be on national registers where the remediation and some of the work that needs to be done might not be able to be done because of their national register issue. How that's going to really increase the cost. How are we going to deal with that issue?
Representative Fischer.
Thank you, Chair Howard, Representative Johnson. I appreciate the question on the National Register. I know that there are a lot of regulations that go in terms of restoring when you're doing this type of work. Sometimes those can be more expensive. Also, it also depends what part of the property you're looking at. Most of the times they're looking at the outside of the property, and that's where most of the work that is being done that is very expensive because you have to do brick restoration or other crown work, roof work, et cetera, to meet the standards of what the Historical Society says. There's a whole process that you go through on that. It's typically limited to the outside of the home or the building. Mostly on the inside of the uses where they are right now, they do allow more modern uses to be taken care of in addressing lead abatement, particularly. Having worked in a structure that fit those categories, they allowed us much more freedom in addressing the lead issues within the inside of the property than when it came to addressing the issues on the outside of the property.
Representative Johnson. Any further questions? If not, I'll just make a comment before turning back to Representative Fischer, and that is, this is, I want to say it's at least my third or fourth time hearing this bill. I've been on housing my 4 years here, and every time we hear this bill, I'm just struck by how important the issue is and how much of a no-brainer it should be for this legislature to pass it. And I think it's now 2 or 3 times also that this bill has passed this body and made it into a conference committee report. And I look forward to making sure that this is the session that we actually get this across the finish line. So thank you, Representative Fischer. Thank you, Ms. Watley-Phillips. Thank you, Tycia. I really appreciate the discussion here today and look forward to what comes next. With that, Representative Fischer.
Thank you, Chair Howard, for your commitment and understanding of how important this is. I'm looking forward to this eventually getting over the line this year. This has got some really great opportunities to help landlords who want to make sure that they're addressing issues within their facilities, particularly when the federal dollars run out. We're going to make state dollars available. And in the process, we keep our kids safe and make sure that we can help end the problem of lead exposure and lead poisoning of our kids. I ask for your support. Thank you for your time today.
And I will renew the motion that House File 1507 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in an omnibus bill. And with that, the bill is laid over. Members, as you know, we'll be canceled tomorrow. I hope everyone drives safe and gets the shovels ready for a few snow days. We'll be back at it next week. With that, we're adjourned.